So I'm going to go ahead and do some introductions. We'll keep the poll open for a couple more minutes while I do that. First, a quick note that this webinar is being recorded. The link to access the archived video will be sent by email to all registered participants later this week. So we are really pleased to have all of you here with us tonight for this webinar on how to access free news. I am Melissa Small. I'm the director at the Readfield Community Library in Readfield, and I'm joined tonight by Nissa Flanagan, Deputy Library Director of Baxter Memorial Library in Gorham, Beth Christ, Director of Special Programs at the Maine State Library, and BJ Jamieson, reference librarian and also genealogy specialist at the Maine State Library. So this program is being brought to you by the collaborative effort of these three libraries and also by MECollab, which is a shared programming effort of a group of Maine libraries. Whichever Maine library you are attending from, we are happy to have you here and we welcome you tonight. So tonight, BJ is our presenter. She will give us a practical how-to of accessing free news using U.S. Newsstream via the Digital Maine Library. BJ will take plenty of questions at the end of her presentation, and so please put all of your questions into the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen rather than in the chat, and we'll make sure she gets to all of your questions at the end. And now on to BJ.
Hi, everyone. I am, as she said, one of the reference librarians at the State Library. And one of the things we're really happy to do as the State Library is have these databases for everybody in the state because, you know, there's a, it's great to have these resources that you don't have to pay for. I joke that I'm half New England Yankee and half Scots, and being frugal is just part of my makeup. And so I'm more than happy to be able to do things like access news and not have to have multiple different subscriptions. Now, I'm going to tell you from the start that this is not going to replicate getting your morning paper and sitting down with a cup of coffee and just gradually working your way through the newspaper. But it has some other advantages that I think you'll say are worth the exchange in not having that and having to sit at your computer. So first, let me share my screen so you can see. Beth and Melissa, are you seeing? Okay, just wanted to make sure I wasn't talking ahead of my visuals. So to access all of the databases that the State Library provides for people in Maine, you go to digitalmainelibrary.org. And if you can't remember that, if you type in Digital Maine Library or any variation on that to a web browser, it will get you to this. Couple things to show you at the top. If you ever are stuck on one of the databases, if you click on Need Assistance, you can phone, but we're really only there from 9 to 5 weekdays. And those of the 4 reference librarians at the library often don't know of back-end technical issues. Whereas if you do the email here, it goes to us and our technical people. So if you're, unless it's an emergency, I suggest doing the email, because that way, if it's a technical issue, you'll get that person, the technical people, right away. So let's go back to the main page. And the first step is actually finding the database. Now, we're librarians, so all of these databases are in alphabetical order, but that means you need to know what the name of the database is. So there are a couple ways you can find what you're looking for. One is you can put in a phrase like news here. You can limit this to, this is not helpful for adults, it's for younger people. We're going to be looking at the U.S. news stream. And so, as I said, we are librarians in their alphabetical order. So U.S. news stream is going to be way down at the bottom. Um, and so here we are. To get to this, you click through. And so I don't get this at work. So I'm seeing this um, for the new, for new. Let me see what I can do. Yeah. So let me try. Well, I guess we'll see how to set one of these up because I don't think I've done this. Um, so we are going to go here, my last name and my library card barcode. Let's see if it lets me in. There we go. So that's how, when you get that, you will not get that if you're on a library computer or on a library network, but you will get it here. Um, and I'm not too upset that there's a little glitch because I want you guys to know that you can get glitches in this. Sometimes it's user error. Sometimes, like me not realizing that using this at home would be different than at the library. Other times it's problems at the other end. And sometimes it's just computers being quirky. You cannot break this. If you ever get somewhere where you're not sure where to go, you can just click back on this little, some people call this the hamburger icon, and you can just click back here like this, and it takes you right back to this page. And I use that all the time at sites like at databases like this. One of the reasons I agreed to do this is a lot of what I'm going to talk about tonight is useful not only with this particular database, but many of the things I'm going to talk about work on the other databases we have. They're from the same company, and so you'll be able to do the same types of things. So we are going to start by just doing a really basic search to find today's newspaper. And so let's say you want to just read what's in today's Portland Press Herald. So what we're going to do, there are a couple ways we can do this. And one is we can do PUB for publication and then parentheses and put in Portland Press Herald and hit enter. And as you can see, here we have today's news, and you can limit this. And I'll come back to the ways you can limit this, but this will show you not everything in the paper ends up here, but this is what you'll be able to find. You'll get what's on the front page. You'll get the important local stories. You may not get all of the sports scores, weather, that sort of thing. This is excellent. If you see something, you're at the grocery store and you see a headline on the Boston Globe that's sitting there that you don't want to pay the $2 for, if you remember the keywords in the title or the date of the newspaper, you can come here and find that article. So let's see. Let's say you'd seen this in the paper, and it says here we've got the full text. And so we can click through here. And here's the full text of the article. You can listen to it. It's a very mechanical voice. I'm not going to try it through this. You can save this as a PDF if you want to print it out. If you click on this, it will give you the citation. It'll take a minute here. It has to think because citation is hard. And you can choose which style you want. I'm a Chicago advocate, so I will do that. And then you can copy this if you're using it for something where you need that. And they have a nice, easy copy button there. If you're using one of these programs, great. You can just print it. You can copy the URL that you can send to somebody else in Maine who signed up for this. You can also do a couple other things. You can save to your research or add to your selected items. And I'll come back to that. So you have various options like that that you don't get with the daily paper. You can do interesting things. Let's go back, and here you'll see I can actually just click back on this to go back here. And one of the things I'm going to show you another way to get at the Maine papers. We're going to click here on change databases. And you'll see here there's the Maine News featured publication. So I can take this out and we can let's put in lobster behavior. Now, a couple of things I want to point out here. One is if somewhere has done this with the British or Canadian spelling, it will pick it up. It's the back end search engine will pick it up. So, for example, if we wanted to put in lobster behavior in a theater, it's going to get this and that. If we wanted to do lobster its effect on the economy, we can stop that far and put an asterisk there, and that will get economy, economics, economist. And so that broadens the search if you're not finding what you're looking for. So let's take a look here. Again, we have 20 articles that come up in Maine News about lobster behavior. And you see here's from the Sun Journal, the Press Herald, the Kennebec Journal, Morning Sentinel. Just got the whole range of them right there. But what we can do is go over to this sidebar, and I'm going to do a little bit of promo here. If you have a card from Bangor, Portland, or the State Library, we're in the middle of transitioning to a new catalog system that will have some of these types of filters when you search for a book. So coming attraction, it is worth the pain of the switch. It's going to be crazy for a week or two. These filters are very helpful for helping you narrow down what you want. It's not unusual for me when I'm helping a patron get 20,000 results, and there's no way we can skim through all of these. So what we can do, we can limit it to only the things that have full text and aren't just a synopsis. That didn't change in this case. That happens more when you're dealing with like peer-reviewed academic journals. These are all newspapers because I'm in the Maine newspaper stream. We can limit it to the last year, 5 years, 10 years. Most of these newspapers online in this database go back to the 1980s, early 1990s. It varies. There's a way to check, which I may or may not get to, but let's do a custom date range, and we'll start with last August 1st, and we'll go to today, and we'll hit apply. And we've gone down, you see, we've gone from 20 to 13 articles. And we can filter by if there's a person mentioned. You can look by database. The Northeast Newsstream is the one that covers like New York and New England. You can limit it by title. At the moment, the Newsstream for Maine only has things in English, but if you're, say, searching in New York or Miami, which you can also get those newspapers, you could search for Spanish or French or whatever language the newspaper's in. You can look the subjects. So we can, let's say we we're really interested in lobster behavior with interacting with fishing, we can do this. And so there are 4 articles since last August, and it looks like it's actually all the same article repeated. All 4 of these papers are owned by the same company. And so they're just reproducing, a lot of it's the same in the different papers. So that's the very simple search. And if you just wanted to get today's papers, what we could do is take this out. We'll go back a couple steps so we can do this. So we're in the Maine News database. We're going to take this out and go to advanced search and just do the publication for today. And hit search. And it's being picky. So anyhow, let's backtrack, and I'm going to go back to the full database. If I can change databases, we'll go back and go down to U.S. Newsstream. And as you see, it starts about 1980 for many of these. There are some papers that were in here at one point and no longer are. For example, I grew up partly in Buffalo and partly here in Maine, and the Buffalo News, they've got from the 1980-ish up through 2017, and then it's not in there anymore. So you will find things like that. So the major dailies, if you're someone where you're basically just wanting to get the big newspapers, this includes these: the Chicago Tribune, the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post. So other than the main newspapers, this is the sub database that most people use because it's going to get you the big national papers. But the U.S. Newsstream Daily gives you lots of other things. And if we go in here to publications, we can do view title only. And let me show you, for example, that Buffalo News example. We go under B, and then we have to go, it's probably going to be on the last page. Come on, computer. You can move. Come on. There we go. Oops. And I guessed wrong. We wanted page 3. So, here's the Boston Herald. And here's the Buffalo News. And if we click on this, you see the dates that are in there. And it's not full text. It's only a citation and abstract, whereas the main papers are the full text. But I just wanted to show you how you could see, if you're looking for, if you grew up in Des Moines and you want to see the Des Moines paper, that's how you would go about finding it, is going back to the publication list. So the next thing I want to talk about is how you can play around with your results to narrow things down. And so, we're in the full Newsstream collection. And again, there are multiple ways to do this. I'm going to show you the advanced search page in a minute. But if I put in lobster or cod, it will get any article that has either one of those or both of those words. But it can just be cod or just lobster. And so you'll notice, we've got 750,000 results. And this is when these filters come in really handy. And So we can go to newspapers and sort by relevance or sort by most recent first, limit it to full text, do a, oops, sorry, my, do a date range so that we're only looking, come on, from 2010 to 2019. Let's say you vaguely remember something you read in that time period, and we can go with the globe, figuring that if it affected New England fishing, that's where it would show up. And then subjects are things that are related. So if we pull those up, we get cooking, and then you'll see we're down to 315 results, which is a lot faster to sort through than 750,000 results. So you can do several of these. If you do, let's say you want to find out what's happening to the restaurant Red Lobster. If you put it in quotes, and you'll notice another thing here, it gives you suggestions. So if you aren't sure what you want, it may tell you, oh, can I get the annual report or references to the annual report? But if we put it in quotation marks, it only searches for articles that have that exact phrase. Except it went back and did this to me. So we will do this again. So, somehow with all of these, it comes down to one article. So we can undo cooking, let's say, and we're up to 30 results. So that's sort of how you can limit things. The other interesting one you can do is, let's say we're doing Franklin, Roosevelt. Now, let's say we don't know whether they've written out his name, they've used the D instead of his middle name. If we go in here and put pre, and let me find my notes here so I make sure to tell you the right thing. I had to write this down. It's /3. This will get results. Actually, I think this may need to be capitalized. Where Franklin is within 3 words of Roosevelt, but it's before. And this is a good way to deal with variations in name. So here we have Franklin D. Here we have it written out. But the problem is if you did Franklin Delano Roosevelt written out with quotation marks, you'd only get them with the full middle name. If you do near, instead of pre, it will get them in any order. But Franklin has to be within 3 words of Roosevelt. And think about something, let's say you're looking for articles on skiing and you want to be able to get alpine skiing versus Nordic skiing, but you don't want to rule out things where it says alpine and Nordic skiing. So if you did alpine near 3 skiing, if they have something in between, it will still find those. So you see here how there's 6 p.m. in between, and so on. Skiing every single alpine and many cross country. So this is getting you words near each other. So that's one of those. I told you about the quotation marks, exact phrase, the pre and near for words that are close to each other. I've shown you some of the filters. I've shown you the source citation. Now let's go to one of the things that's really handy and that can help with not feeling like you're losing your morning paper. You can create a free account. And what you do is you go here, this little person, and where it says create my research account, I've already done it. So it's going to do this. But if I just, and what you can do, for example, here, I found this article in the Bangor Daily News from yesterday about tapping maple trees. And I was able to save it so that I can come back to it. And so let me show you how one of those works. So we'll go back to our searches. You can save searches as well. So if we go into lobster behavior, we'll go and we can click on this article and we can then, where was it? Go to all options and save to my research. And hit save. And then we go back here to my saved documents. And it's been added to my saved documents. And so this is a very handy feature for, if you're doing research on something, you could, I use it, not my work account, but I have my personal account for saving recipes that I have found in newspapers. You can also save a search. So if we go back to the basic search, we're in the bunch of data. So we're going to go into the change databases and go into Maine News. And we're going to search for a blueberry pie recipe. And what we can do at this point, you see here, because I'm signed in, I now have these options. And one is to save the search or alert. So I'm going to click on that. And first I'm going to save the search. And we'll see that. And so we're going to call this blueberry pie not as good as my mother's. And a note, but we're trying. I'm in a quest to find a blueberry pie recipe that's as good as the one that was in my mother's head and I didn't get before she died. Or we can set this up as an alert. And what we want to do is we click there, click create alert. And we're going to name this blueberry pie. And we go down here and I'm going to have it send it to me, new documents. We'll hit, let's choose weekly on Thursdays, and we'll try it for 2 months. And we'll send this so I know that I haven't been accidentally unsubscribed. And we hit create alert and close. And now, let me see. I should be able to pull this over here. Can you now see an email from me on my screen? So this is the email I would get. This is just telling me it's set up, but this is the email you would get saying there's a new newspaper article about blueberry pie. And so if there's something you're interested in that you don't want to have to check for every day, or you can have it send an alert every day. Google News does this as well. So for example, one of my Google News alerts is for Maine State Library. So I can see what is said about the library in local papers. So this is something, if there's somebody you want to follow news about, and so on. It's a handy thing. And as you could see, you could change how often you get it and so on. So the one other thing I want to show you is that there is an advanced search option. And what this does is those things like the or, you can put in here, you can put in lobster has to be in the title. And you need the author. Let's put in Woodard for Colin Woodard and hit search. Didn't find anything. That's weird. Well, let's say we want to see, let's see if we, so we're going to try instead putting in anywhere for Stephen King. Because, what's more Maine than lobster and Stephen King, right? Huh. Why is this not working? Oh, after this date, we're going to do all dates. That's what, it was looking for things published after today. And sometimes the easiest thing to do is just clear the search. Usually on the search page, somewhere you'll find a clear the search button. Or you go back to the beginning and start from there. So it looks like there are 13 articles in the Maine News, the Newsstream, that mention both Stephen King and lobster. And here's one from 2020 going back to the 1990s. So that's nice. We can modify this search. Let's say we want to do something. Here's the clear form. So we'll clear the form just so you see what happens. And it goes back to the defaults on all of them. And let's go back to the whole U.S. news stream. And do this one. So we're going to do lobster. In the title of the article. If you wanted it in the title of the newspaper, it would be the publication title. And then we're going to put in Stephen King anywhere and hit search. And get 28. Not bad. So I'm going to save this as an alert. And my guess is I'll never get anything on this, but We'll see. So this is one of the really nice things if you have an interest um, in something so that you get the articles delivered, a link to the article delivered to your inbox. But yeah, we'll go back to the advanced search again. And you can see um, subject headings are a bit quirky. They're somewhat controlled vocabulary, um, but they can be helpful. Um, some of the rest of this, um, you know, some of the, for example, one of the things in the U.S. Newsstream is 60 minutes. And so you can sometimes get audio or video clips. Um, as I said, if you're looking for news in another language, you can try that. Um, this is not the place to look for magazine and scholarly journals. They have some, but there are other ProQuest products back at the Digital Maine Library that have better access to those things. And if you play around with this, most of the same things will carry over to the other databases, which is one reason I figured when I was asked to help out with this, I said, yeah, because if you conquer this, you can do most of the other things that or deal with most of the other databases. So at this point, it looks like, let me just do one double check of my notes. And we dealt with the filters, generating references, which most of you won't need to do. We did getting things nearby. That nearby one, near slash the number, like 5 words, is really helpful when you're looking for things that have common words in them. Looks like that's most of it. So at this point, I'm going to say, let's see if there are questions.
Okay, we do have some questions. Thank you for all of your questions. Thank you, BJ. That was fabulous. The first two questions are similar and they go back to the very beginning. So a lot of people on may be totally new to Digital Maine Library and they won't have an account. And so
So
oh, sorry.
yeah,
One question is, how do you log in if you use a different library? Because they noticed on the left-hand part of that Digital Maine Library screen, the login, it lists the Bangor Public Library, the Maine State Library, and maybe Portland Public Library. So maybe if you could go over that screen and
sure.
how to set up an account. And that was also the second question. How do you
Okay,
register
so
if you're not one of the libraries
create
listed?
my um find your institution now. Um, why is this not?
So I think they mean way back on the Digital Maine Library screen, like when you
Oh,
first,
back
yeah,
here.
to make an account there because some
Yeah.
people will never have made an account yet. So,
You shouldn't need one at this point. It's only when you go to one of the databases. If you pull this page up, you don't need to be logged in to get it. Um,
well, so if they want to read the new, so we have a couple of questions about the New York Times.
okay.
And
So we'll go
so,
into
so if I want to read the New York, if this is my very first time on Digital Maine Library, I've never been on it for anything else, so I don't have an
mhm.
account. How do they set up that account?
You go into
Like you,
create my research account and
no, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm not being clear.
okay.
So way back for Digital Maine Library, not within, yeah. So remember at the very beginning, you needed to create, remember you had been logged in at the library and then you're
Yeah.
home. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's what
Yeah.
they want to know
And
because
that's
there's that.
that's you what you would do is you would go down to US News Stream
Mhm.
And at this point, you can look at all of this without an account. You can actually go in here. Um, Trying to think how you know what I can do? Let me stop sharing my screen for 1 minute while I pull something else up. And
While you're doing that, though, I'll just tell people if they need to log in. So back to that beginning screen, if it's popping up where it's asking you for an account on the left-hand side where BJ filled in her information, it's Maine State Library, Portland Public Library, and Bangor Public Library. If you have accounts at any of those three libraries, it'll give you directions to log in via
okay,
that. And if you don't have any of those three on the right-hand side, it'll give you different directions to establish an account if you don't have an
okay.
account at one of those libraries.
So you're seeing my screen now?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm in a different browser. I haven't used this before with this. So we're going to go to Digital Maine Library. And
Like, let's say you want to just read the New York Times from today,
okay,
and this is your first time ever doing this.
okay. So you go down here all the way at the bottom. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
As I said, we're librarians, they're alphabetical order. The spices in my kitchen are in alphabetical order type. So we go to US Newsstream. All right. Um, any of the Minerva libraries, which is most of many, if not most of the public libraries in Maine. I don't happen to have one of my Minerva library cards here to use. Um, but that's what you would still do your name and your barcode number, as long as you have one of those 14-digit barcodes. There are ways to do this without a card, or if you don't have a card, you live in a town without a library, you can get a digital access card from the state library. You would just go, let me see if I can find this now that I've said this. Um, let's go
There's
to this
actually a form right there. If you go back to that
to
page,
this.
yeah, and go down to US Newsstream again.
Yeah.
There you go. That to the right. So you
So
can actually,
Oh,
that's
register here.
yeah, yeah.
So that's for you. That's for the University of Maine system,
But
not
new
if
user register here. Register for a free
okay.
account.
You see that? Yeah. So public library. Yeah, but you can also talk to the state library and get a free card if you need it, if you don't have a local card for some reason. Um, so yeah, we'll go here and then you would put in your last name and your card number. But this Minerva covers a lot of the libraries around the state. For example, I know it's Belfast, Lithgow here in Augusta, Norway, and so on. So that's what you would do.
thank
And
you.
and if you have trouble, that's what your local library is for, or you can call us at the state library and we can walk you through it.
Okay, so another related question. I was recently unable to find a Portland Press Herald article via the USM library, apparently not accessible there. Will Digital Maine Library work with my USM ID?
Um, they're separate here. You would go to this University of Maine system. So you'd want to use your public library card to see if it was a slightly different date. I don't know whether it's the exact same database or not. Beth, do you know?
I don't.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a UMS, a University of Maine ID, so I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. Then someone is asking about finding current obituaries.
Okay, so let me go back to the other screen. And again, if they're here in Maine, I would suggest going to the Maine News database. And I'm looking, I want to see. I think you would just put in, let me try someone in Maine in the last year with name Littlefield, I'm sure has died. Um, let's see what this does. Yeah. So you would put in the person's name, an obituary, and here you see them. And again, you can, let's say you want somebody, somebody died, yeah, around the time one of your kids turned 21 in 2006. You could do something here where you do 2004 0101. Oops. I never took typing and I regret it painfully when I do programs like this. And then we'll do 2008 dash 12 or 12 dash 31. And we hit apply and it would get the obituaries for that have Littlefield in them anywhere from that 4-year time period. Does that make sense, Debbie? Does that make sense? I know she's the one who asked the question. So
So we have two questions that are related to photos. So are there photos in the stories or just text? Can you search specifically for photos is one of the questions. And the other one, um,
yeah, it's text only.
okay, there you go. So um,
And looking
there
at
were
one of the other questions, it's not case sensitive. You don't have to capitalize letters if you don't remember to.
great, thank you for that one. Um, okay, so New York Times, there are two questions. One is, does this give you access to the New York Times food recipes? And the second one is, can you read the New York Times or other traditional media by searching for news versus opinion so that you know when you are reading one versus the other? That's a pretty critical distinction. In
Yes.
traditional print, the opinion and op-ed pages are clearly labeled as such.
Yeah. Let's take a look. Just actually, let's go to the oh,
I would love while you're actually
major
doing that,
dailies. Let's
yeah,
do,
can you remind us how we get to Wall Street Journal or New York Times or
yeah,
one of these mediums? Thank you.
that's this US major dailies. Um, and you can do the change database is how I maneuver through them because here under the Newsstream collection, you can look for only 60 minutes or only for Spanish language or Spanish oriented. If you're looking for something that happened in the Midwest, the two that we use the most often here in Maine are the major dailies and the Northeast Newsstream, along with the Maine Newsstream. So let's go into the major dailies and let's go to an advanced search. So I'm interested in let's put in for an author, Joan Nathan. Um, recipe. So here we have 166, or actually 205, but 166 in newspapers by Joe Nathan, who's one of their food. And so, yeah, let's go in here and let's see. That's interesting. It does not have the full text there. So let's go back and see if we get back to results. Let's see what we get here. I had not ever thought to look for this. It looks like you may not get the recipes, which is a shame. I had not thought to look, but we could. What if we did? Let's try this, because they give you these other terms that are we're getting way too much here. Things from the magazine. Let's see what we have. Well, here's a recipe. So it's possible. So I'm not certain why we're getting some and not others. I have not had to. So let's go back to the results, and I'm going to clear the screen where somewhere what we're going. Let's go back to the advanced search so we can see what I'm doing. And let's put in lobster recipe, and we'll take out Joan Nathan because she's probably not going to have, and we'll switch this back. And what we're going to do is we're going to use that near /5 and see what we get here. And we're going to go down here for the publication title. And one of the things they've done is split up things that were online only from things that were important, reading from the newspaper. But let's say you had seen a lobster recipe you wanted to find. So here's one. Here is one. But we had to sort of know what we were looking for. So it may be that you need to have, and you can see they've got these other related, a recipe for olive oil zucchini bread. Doesn't have the recipe. But what this can do is if you have one of those, oh, I know I saw this in that newspaper 5 years ago, say this olive oil zucchini bread, if you get the citation, you can then call your local library or the state library that has this on microfilm and get it that way. It's not a perfect answer, but within the limitations of what you get with this free service, or free to you guys. It's not free to the state library, trust me. So that's an interesting question. I had not thought of that one before as I was putting this together.
So we have a lot of questions, which is so great. Let's get to the next. So back to the New York Times. What about news versus opinion? So if you, for example, if you just go to the, so they're talking about being in traditional print and you can clearly
Yeah.
see. So if we just went to today's New York Times, all the listings of those articles for today,
Yeah.
would it delineate within the listing of the articles what's news versus what's opinion?
I don't think so. But let's see.
Okay.
So we'll go to the late edition. And so this is, let's actually go with yesterday just to make sure that we've got everything. Um, it doesn't look, but let's go through. Let's um I wonder if this is more opinion. Oh, that's interesting. This one has a picture. Um, so I don't know. I know the older ones don't have pictures, so that may be a more recent ones. Um, it doesn't look like you get an easy, quick, this is opinion versus. Again, that's a question I've never gotten before. You guys are good. I've been working with this database or the predecessors to it for 7 or 8 years now, and this is the first time I've gotten some of these questions. Um, so I think you kind of have to figure it out. Um, they don't seem to really distinguish that. Um,
Okay, and then how about so since you're that we just saw how to get to the New York Times, the listing, and we can't do what that patron wanted to do, but that's okay. What about the Bangor Daily News? That's another question. What if someone wants to read the Bangor Daily News for the past few days? What's the easiest way to get there?
um, we'll go to the main news. Oh, I wanted to show you one other thing. I struggled to do this one, but if we go here, and I'll sign into my research again. It's not what I wanted. There we go. You can create shortcuts. And where was it? So we're going to go into the change databases. And you see here how I put, I have the Washington Post here. We can add or delete here. And we'll add a shortcut. And then we're going to go down to the U.S. Newsstream and Northeast. How did I get? Oh, that's interesting that you can do it for the major dailies, but not for this. That's interesting. I've never had it asked for anything other than the major ones. So that's an interesting. Oh, there is the Bangor Daily News. So when we go back to change databases, there's the Bangor Daily News. And then we go, this works differently at home than in the library. I didn't know that. I apologize for not knowing some of this because I hadn't really used it except at the library. Well, we'll go into the other way to do it is we'll go into Maine News and we can do PUB parentheses Bangor Daily News. And then do a custom date range. Well, actually, the easiest thing is just most recent first. And then you can see it looks like they don't have today's up yet. They are some, particularly with the smaller papers, they're often a few hours to a day behind. But as you can see, here's yesterday's news. And then you so you as I said, it's not the same as sitting down with a cup of coffee. If you like reading, my father, the city he lived in stopped doing an evening paper. and he got the morning paper, but kept it because he came home from work and read the paper before he got himself supper. So if you like that for the sort of ritual of it, this isn't going to do it for you. But if you're looking to supplement or, sitting at the computer while you're doing something else, waiting, and you can use these, they're not quite as easy on a tablet or a phone, but you can use them on a tablet or phone. So, if you're sitting waiting for one of your teenagers to finish up something, you can go in and look at the day's news. So it looks like if there's a photograph, it will appear. Let's see. You can copy. So let's choose something non-political here. How about a mounted bear missing from a trailer? You can just copy it and plunk it into something else the way you would with anything else. Or you can save it as a PDF if you just want it looking nice. It should do this.
Jay, are you answering the question, can you copy from the database and
Yes.
save it in your own
Yes.
document? Okay.
Yes. And you can see here here it is all nicely formatted with all the information you'll ever need for a citation. But you can also, as I said, just copy what you want, the way you would do this in a Control-C, and then plunk it in Word or whatever program you use, or an email. So that's that one. Okay, let's see what we can do. I don't know. You don't have to. Someone asked about whether you can suppress certain people from the person list, so you don't have to open the person list. All of those filters you don't have to look at if you don't want to. So that will.
Okay, there's another question about how can we access Decor magazines. Beth is going to answer that in typing format. I found that as long as I'm in Maine, I don't have to log into the Digital Maine site. If you want to access when you're out of state, then you do have to sign into your library. It's not really as a question, but what would you say to that? Is there out of state access to all of this?
I mean, if you're in Florida for the winter and you have a Maine library card, you should be able to log in. When you're here in state, it really some people don't need to log in and some do. We routinely get questions about, last week it didn't make me sign in and this week it does. I remember years ago when Tim Hortons was still in central Maine, I was sitting in a Tim Hortons here in Augusta and tried to log into my Netflix account, and it told me I was out of the country and I couldn't access Netflix. And obviously somehow their internet was reading as Canadian, even though I was here in Augusta. So it's never quite clear to me how the technology for reading where you are can be quirky. I also have a friend who lives about a quarter of a mile from the New Hampshire border. And even though she has a Maine internet connection, she often ends up having to sign into things because it thinks she's in New Hampshire.
So we just have a couple more questions. A few of the questions are comments, so I'll leave those, but Lori's asking, our library still has microfilm, question mark.
Yeah, I don't know about the others, but we are still getting the main papers that do microfilm, and the New York Times I don't think we're getting the Wall Street Journal or Washington Post. The list is right there at the reference desk, and I'm at home. So, but we are still getting microfilm if we can. It is, if it is stored properly, it is still in many ways the best long-term solution. It's better than paper or computer, digital records for long-term storage. The estimated lifespan of well cared for microfilm is around 500 years. So yes, we are still getting it.
Barb has a question, but I'm not sure what
Oh,
it's
with the
relating
shortcut,
to.
yeah, you have to create those. And as you see, some of them work better than others. And Barb, if you get stuck, give me a call and I'll walk you through it again.
And then another question, again about New York Times. Can one access Wirecutter
I
through
don't
New York
know.
Times?
Let's figure that out. So we're going to go back to change databases, and we're going to go into the U.S. Newsstream and the major dailies. And we'll take that out, and we want looks like you can. Look, like this looks like it's one from today. So the answer to that is yes. Yeah, and I agree that it's a shame that we can't see the opinion. One of the comments, the opinion versus news. I think that is a distinction that is nice to have, but with the way this database works, um, that's not there, unfortunately.
So, Nissa or Beth, if you have anything to add in, or if I've missed any questions, let me know. And if not, since we're a little bit past 7:30, I think we should probably wrap up so people can get on with their evenings.
Yeah, I will say, if let me just very quickly, if you know, start with your local library if you have questions. If that doesn't work, the reference desk at the state library is 207-287-5608, or the email is reference.desk@maine.gov, and we're more than happy to help you.
I did
But
want to circle back real quick to the obituaries. There was a
okay,
follow-up question from Debbie. Can you browse who died in the last month?
I don't know. Let's see.
Okay.
We'll go back to the main news. Um, and so let's do just Bangor Daily News obituary. And then my assumption would be if we go into a custom date range. So let's say we'll just do the 1st of January to today, just because it's easy. Looks like no. That's interesting. But I wonder if we do it for all of the main news, what we get. Now, it looks like for some of the others, you can scroll. So limiting it looks like they may not do it for the Bangor, but it looks like it's picked up for the Sun Journal. So, and that's probably at the newspaper's end about how they code things for ProQuest to scrape it. So, well, I'm glad. It's always nice when I do one of these programs and I get questions I'd never gotten before. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, BJ, for sharing your expertise with us tonight. And on behalf of the Readfield Community Library and Baxter Memorial Library and the Maine State Library and MECollab, we really appreciate you all coming and learning from BJ, and we hope you have a fabulous night. Thank you.